Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House here with the indomitable Charles Coulombe.
Indomitable.
Uh-huh.
I like that. I like indomitable. Makes you feel sort of solid.
Which you are.
Yeah, I'm pretty solid, it's true. Not very ethereal.
No, thank God.
Ah, well, it's true. But you'd be feeling a little psychotic if I were ethereal. Like you're sitting here talking to some sort of weird hallucination.
Yeah.
You ever feel that way sometimes, though? Talking to me and think, wow, this is like an hallucination.
No, not particularly.
Good, I feel better. It's great to be back.
Mm-hmm.
Considering everything that's happened since the past week.
What's happened since the past week?
Oh, my stars and bars. You don't know?
No.
Well, firstly, today, in real time, as opposed to the Monday when you're going to be seeing us, is January 26th. That's Australia Day.
Mm-hmm. Australia. What does that mean?
Australia? Well, it's a continent and a country in the far side of the... Oh, you mean what's Australia Day?
Yeah.
That is the day that the 5 colonies... Is that right? 5? We can do this. Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania, South Australia. 6. All right. The 6 colonies that made up, that were there on the Australian continent, bonded together to form one country, the Commonwealth of Australia.
Excellent.
And that was today. This is their national day. It's like Dominion Day in Canada. It's like the 4th of July in the United States.
Ah.
It's like April Fools in Los Angeles. It's the national day. So, to all you Australians out there, congratulations. You've got a wonderful country. I have questioned some of your culinary choices, but...
What's wrong with Australian food?
Nothing, but I mean, there's some things like widgety grubs that I question.
Widgety grubs?
Yeah, widgety grubs.
That doesn't sound too appetizing.
It's not really. Especially if you spread them over with Vegemite.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, so let's see, what else can I say on that regard? And in every regard, we are still puffing along with Christmas. Yesterday was Burns Night, which is sacred to the memory of Robert Burns, the great national poet of Scotland. And throughout the Scotosphere, that's like the Anglosphere, only in Scots.
Okay.
All right. People through this week are having Burns Night dinners or suppers, which feature the pipes and the procession with the haggis and the address to the haggis and the cutting open of the haggis and reading from Burns's poetry and the toast to the ladies and the toast to the laddies from the ladies. Oh, it's great fun.
You do a procession with haggis?
Yeah, and bagpipes and drums.
It's kind of weird. Procession with meat?
It's not just meat, it's haggis.
Okay.
Haggis are various bits and odds and ends of things that in other places would go into scrapple. But in this place they go into, in this case they go into a stomach. And the stomach is haggis, it's your sheep's stomach generally.
Do you like haggis?
Yeah, I like haggis. Especially marinated in Scotch whiskey, which is how they serve it.
Wow.
With tutties and neeps. That's potatoes and turnips.
Okay.
Anyway, let me just say also that we have yesterday was the end of the Chair of Unity Octave, which is the Church's prayer for the reunion of all Christians under the Pope, which originated from the convert Father Paul of Graymore, who brought his whole order into the Catholic Church from the Episcopal Church in 1909. So those are 3 elements, ladies and gentlemen. The Chair of Unity Octave, Burns Night, and Australia Day, which help to lighten up these last few dying remnants of Christmas.
Okay.
I don't want to let Christmas go, you know.
No, no one does.
Well, it's happening though.
Well, we have an excellent first question in this regard.
Okay.
From P.F. Andolo.
Hello.
Could you address this upcoming Sunday being Septuagesima, yet still Christmas? How should a Catholic disposed to living his life with rhythm of the liturgical year treat next week, which has penitential and celebratory undertones simultaneously?
Good question. And you're right in that the Christmas season kind of peters out in a weird fashion. I say this because, remember, the church calendar has two separate cycles going at once. The sanctoral cycle, which are basically the major feasts and minor feasts, but every day of the year, Christmas and things like that, are fixed. But then there's the temporal cycle based on Easter. And these are the seasons of Easter, Lent and Advent and so forth. And they change every year. So Christmas, as a result, kind of peters out into Septuagesima. Very true. Candlemas Eve, Candlemas Day are the ending of the feast on the temporal cycle. Septuagesima, which was taken out of the new calendar, is the season between Lent and Christmas, and specifically the after Epiphany era. And the answer is that Septuagesima simply has this weird season, which is 2 weeks long. Septuagesima, Quinquagesima, Quadragesima. Septuagesima, Sexagesima, rather, Quinquagesima. Quadragesima would be the first Sunday in Advent. But those 2 weeks have a very peculiar mixture of penance and celebrative. They always have had. Partly because Christmas is dying down, partly for very pragmatic reasons, which is that people had to get rid of everything with Lent coming up. In the Eastern Rite of the Church, Eastern Rites, the Byzantine in particular, Septuagesima is divided. They don't have anything that's the equivalent of our Septuagesima, but our Sexagesima Sunday, I think, maybe I'm off by a week, but at any rate, they do meat fair Sunday, after which it's not Lent yet, but you're not eating meat. Then cheese fair Sunday, after which it is Lent and there's no cheese. So in both cases, you're kind of getting revved up to get into real deep penance.
There's no cheese for Lent either?
Not originally, no dairy products.
Wow.
No butter, no cheese, no eggs.
When they changed that?
Gradually and at different times, but they began to relax the things probably in the 1400s.
Oh, okay, wow. That was
It's been very, very gradual. And also not blanket. So like one country would have the privilege of eating eggs in Lent, but not the other countries around it.
Yeah.
And bit by bit by bit by bit, culminating with Vatican II's, or the new calendar in 72, 69, where it was finally reduced to fasting being only the Good Friday and Ash Wednesday, and fasting itself being defined as 2 small meals that don't together make 1 meal, and a meal.
Yeah.
And then the abstinence from meat only required on the Fridays of Lent. That is the smallest amount of fasting and abstinence that the Church has ever required from anybody. And we still find it hard.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. And yet, now the Eastern rites are much stricter. They keep to a lot more of the rules that we once had.
Yeah, I was going to say, Coptics are just straight up vegan.
Yeah, I mean...
For all of all of Advent too, in addition to Lent.
Yeah.
And their Advent is longer.
Yeah, they call it Nativity Fast. I mean,
I don't know how they do it.
Well, they do it, and of course, we whine and complain about the little bit that, you mean I can't have a steak on Good Friday? No. But about the next Friday, yes, you can. Now, obviously, traditionally minded people try to keep the discipline that they remember from when they were younger, which was a bit stricter. but it still was pretty lax. That's why, you remember earlier on, when we were talking about the penitential nature of Advent, I had someone complain that Advent's not a penitential thing like that under canon law. Well, no, there's very little that is required any longer. But the reason why people fasted and abstained, those reasons remain true. And that is that it is easier to resist sin when you abstain from meat and when you fast. And also, it means giving up something you enjoy, presuming you enjoy food, for the sake of Almighty God.
It's teaching you to be selfless and to accept suffering.
Yeah.
Huge things in the journey of the spiritual life.
Exactly. But, you know, we are very legalistically minded. So, you know, well, I'm not doing any more than the church requires out of me. Which, mutatis mutandis, it's like saying you don't want to show any more affection to your parents than you're required to.
Ah.
You know, well, I have to give my mother a peck on the cheek on her birthday. That's all she gets.
Wow.
What would you think of someone who was that kind of kid?
I wouldn't think too much of him.
No, I don't think so. And fasting and abstaining are one way to show our love for our Lord. So, plus you can offer up the pains when it gets unpleasant, and it will, for your sins. So, you know, cut down some of that old purgatory time.
Purgatory time?
Yeah.
You worried about that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll say. Although, on the one hand, I suppose I'll be grateful if I even make it there, but...
Nobody's worried about purgatory time anymore.
No, I know. We're all so wonderful.
You know, there was a time where, you know, you could sell indulgences. You know, that was a big thing. Pope Francis, in that year of mercy, and you could hardly give it away for free anymore.
No, nobody wanted it.
Nobody cared.
No, they'll take annulments.
No, what?
They'll take annulments. That
Oh,
you can still
there
sell.
you go. Yeah.
You can sell annulments.
Yeah.
Let's not be nice. It's still Christmas. But at any rate, getting back to your question, Septuagesima Sunday is the season of Mardi Gras. Or, I mean, not Sunday, but Septuagesima season is the season of Mardi Gras. It's the season of Carnival. It's the season of celebration. But it's when you plan your Lent. Okay? So let your Mardi Gras, your Septuagesima, your Carnival be as celebrative as you plan for your Lent to be penitential. Okay? So if you're just going to do the bare minimum, don't throw yourself into Mardi Gras. Stay home and be boring or bored or whatever you want to do. But if you're going to keep Lent as strictly as you possibly can, and throw yourself into Mardi Gras.
Yeah, get while the getting's good.
Get while the getting's good, within certain limits, of course. You know, one of the interesting things, too, about Carnival and Mardi Gras in Catholic countries, and one of the things I love about the church is how she comes up with something for everything. It's just great. All right, so Lent was kept very strictly, but Carnival would be kept real wild.
Yeah.
And there would be excesses. Well, that was when we get the 40 hours devotion. Because some people, rather than celebrating Carnival, would spend the 40 hours devotion in front of the Blessed Sacrament, atoning for the sins of those sinning in Carnival.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. And it's something, it's a beautiful interconnection. Recently, it's come to me that there's few more beautiful phrases, and we tend to toss it off if we use it, than in union of prayer. I mean, the thought that there'd be some old lady praying for me in front of the Blessed Sacrament.
Mm-hmm.
What a great thought.
Yeah.
Of course, now I'm old enough to where perhaps I might begin to think of taking my place next to the 40 hours people. Because there's something about someone my age getting all groovy during Carnival that's a little bit sick-making.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you didn't have to agree. You could have said, no, that's not true. But never mind. Go ahead. I've had enough of this abuse.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I don't care. What else we got?
Okay, we have a fiery question from Will Johnston.
Wow! Bum bum bum. Okay, danger, Will Johnston. Danger, danger. All right, what is it?
Why is it that so many traditional Catholics have virtually no sense of humor? Also, why is it so often that their wives wear absolutely no makeup and wear such drab clothing? I really don't mean to be mean, but is there some dogma I'm missing where lipstick is a sin? Wow! Shots fired.
Wow, well, if you didn't mean to be mean, you failed miserably, but, that's okay. Well, we're here for you, pal. God. All right. You ever watch two morons discuss quantum physics? That's about how I feel like right now.
Okay.
All right. As we said last time, traditionalists are very often people who have gone through terrible abuse and been very upset with things. And also the people who are extremely alive as to the unpleasantries in which we live. That can sometimes detract from your sense of humor. It shouldn't if you want to stay sane, but it can. And all I can say is that most sedevacantists I know are singularly humorless. And that might be one reason. I don't know, though. Cultivate a sense of humor yourself. If you don't like seeing trads without a sense of humor, you make sure you don't lose yours. Now, on the other hand, Will, I can't make the same regard as far as makeup goes. I do not recommend you wearing any. But I suggest you should keep a sense of humor, but I don't think you should wear makeup.
Yeah, great advice.
Okay. Hope we're clear on this. This too is a question that comes up more amongst ladies in traditional circles. There is the belief and the fear that of immodest dress and immodest behavior, which is certainly the leitmotif, there's a word for you, the leitmotif of the zeitgeist.
Zeitgeist?
Zeitgeist, the spirit of the age.
Of
the modern times that we live in. Immodesty, to say nothing of outright sensuality, is what we're all about as a people. And so in reaction to that, people can certainly go the other way. There are a line of, there's a line of trad lady clothing designers that are modest while being very feminine and very beautiful, very reminiscent of the 30s and 40s, where people knew how to combine modesty with attractiveness. As far as the makeup goes, my mother was a great makeup wearer until she died. She was pretty trad, but it's the same thing. Traditional women who are fearful of attacks on chastity will very often go in the direction of drab clothing and no makeup. But there's no requirement. Personally, I feel you need to strike some sort of a balance between, the gunny sack and the shimmy dress. You don't know what a shimmy dress is.
No. I know what a gunny sack is.
No, bad. Not a shimmy dress. I can tell you women look better in shimmy dresses than they do in gunny sacks, honestly. Sure. At any rate, there is, to my knowledge, there is no requirement that they be frumps or dowdy, but very often that's the unintended effect of women who would like to be modest and, dare I say it, Marian in their dress and behavior. So, do some of them carry it a little too far? Well, de gustibus non est disputandum. In matters of taste, there is no argument.
Okay. What do you think of the debate where on modesty for women, whether or not they should wear pants?
Well, I don't like their wearing pants, frankly.
Interesting.
I think, I much prefer women wearing skirts and dresses, but that's just because I'm into, like, gender differences.
Ah.
And I'm a great believer, see, having a gender of my own, I'm very proud of it. And I would like those who have genders of their own to be proud of theirs.
Okay. I'll play devil's advocate on one question and say, well, what about if they're like a laborer, like a farmer or something? What if what if pragmatism comes into their decision?
If you're going to be wearing bib overalls to church.
I didn't say to church. I said to, like, when you're working the fields.
No, I know, but inevitably when this argument comes up, why do you wear pants to church? Well, what would you say about someone working in the fields? I'd say they shouldn't wear bib overalls to church. That's what I would say. But, no, I mean, obviously, if you are a farmer or something like that, that might be one consideration. But I say might, because somehow lady farmers managed for centuries with skirts and dresses.
Ah.
It's also why they rode side saddle instead of astride.
Interesting.
Or, see, if you look at these things from the basis of how they were actually done, there are ways around all this. But I mean, I'm not going to point at a girl in slacks and say, unclean!
No?
Shun the unbeliever!
No.
No, although that would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
But no, I'm certainly not going to do that. But personally, and this is a matter of personal taste, I much prefer ladies in dresses and gowns and skirts. Just like, I prefer nuns in habits, priests in cassocks. I think that we should all be proud of our state in life, whatever it is. And I think that one reason why women's clothing has become more masculine is because women are less and less proud of their gender. I mean, feminism, their idea of liberating woman has been to make her into a carbon copy of man.
Yeah.
But that doesn't work. So, anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Next 3 questions are from Benjamin Cruz.
Hello, Benjamin.
On an earlier episode, you spoke on the gifts Sweden gave the church. What about other countries like France and Germany?
Well, they've all contributed something. I mean, apart from me, France contributed, what? I'm French descent.
Yeah.
All right. France contributed all sorts of things, both historically in terms of her saints, but also a great deal of logic and reason, which is so much a part of the French nationality. The Germans contributed a great deal in the way of philosophers and thinkers, and they're very romantic. Of course, the French have their romantic side too. I mean in the sense of romanticism, not in, come with me to the Casbah. But it's true of every nation in the Catholic world. It's like a tremendous tapestry or picture puzzle. And the bunch of them together are just great.
Okay. His next question is, how did monarchy in the Middle Ages differ from absolute monarchy?
Well, the difference was in terms of the concentration of power in the hands of the king and the existence of what Leo XIII called subsidiary institutions, the guilds, the provinces, the church, various peasant associations, and so forth. You see, absolute monarchy was really the beginning of the modern state. All right. Under the medieval monarch, authority, that is to say, the right to say what ought to be done, was concentrated in the hands of the king and the church. But power, the ability to make things happen, that was spread out amongst all these different subsidiary groups. And so a good king was like an orchestra leader. And when you had a bad king, apart from whatever unpleasantries it might make for the people immediately around him, the results of a bad king was not tyranny, but anarchy, as the different power holders started trying to carve out their own niches.
Oh.
Well, with us, starting with the absolute monarch, he concentrated more and more power in his own hands. that was the beginning of the modern state.
Louis XVI did that.
14th.
Excuse me. 14th.
Yeah, and his minister Coulombe, but others at other times in other countries.
Right.
And the problem with that was that it created the modern state, which in time realized it didn't need a king.
Yeah.
And so deposed the king, and has ruled our lives from that day to this far more absolutely than any monarch.
Yeah.
And we laughingly and lovingly lick it up and do as we're told and bark like dogs and wear our underwear on our heads when we're told. And have 3 genders if we're told.
Yeah.
And gay marriage if we're told. And bark like dogs if we're told. And we don't smoke in public if we're told.
Bark like dogs if we're told?
Yeah. Yeah. Because we were freedom lovers, and we could vote, so that makes such a difference.
All right, next question. Benjamin Cruz's last question.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on Emmanuel Macron?
He's an interesting guy. He came out of nowhere. He's sort of the Manchurian candidate. He's sort of assembled. But he said some interesting things. He was put in primarily because the French establishment knew that none of their usual suspects could defeat Mademoiselle Le Pen. So this guy was kind of almost assembled and put out there. But in a lot of ways, he's been acting like Le Pen.
Interesting.
And, he said France hasn't been well since she got rid of the king.
Wow.
I mean, what kind of president of France says that? So, he's an odd guy, and I don't expect him to be consistent on anything.
Mm-hmm.
But so far he's been fun to watch.
So there's a little bit of hope. You're somewhat pleased?
Somewhat. I mean, I don't know how pleased or how much hope there is, but we'll find out.
Okay. Will M. asks, I've heard that Louis XVI became a mystic later in his life. Was this true?
No, I mean, a lot depends on what you mean by mystic. Did he bilocate? Did he float through the air like St. Joseph of Cupertino? No. But he certainly became much more focused after he went to prison on the Sacred Heart. That was when he wrote his famous Last Testament, vowed his country to the Sacred Heart, and declared that if he were released, he would consecrate France to the Sacred Heart as his great-grandfather Louis XIV was supposed to do and did not, in order to atone for the sins of France against the Sacred Heart. As we know, he died in prison, very devout, very resolute. He would have been spared if he had been willing to concede control of the church to the Republic or to the French government, but he would not go along with that. So, in the sense of a mystic as a fellow with a devout and deeply developed prayer life, yeah, I guess. The same for Marie Antoinette. Pius VI, at the time he died, declared an allocution, pourquoi d'entrevoirs, that as far as he was concerned, Louis XVI was a martyr for the faith. Who knows, perhaps one day he'll be on the church's altars, perhaps not.
Okay. Matthew Gray asks, what are your thoughts on the Iraq War?
Well, which one? Well, for starters, it was probably a mistake for us to connive in the overthrow of the monarchy in Iraq in 1958, because the country has never really been in good shape since then. I think we made several crucial mistakes in our conduct of the war. First was getting into it. Second was in dismantling the Iraqi state apparatus.
Mm-hmm.
Third, I think what we should have done is simply declare the 1958 Constitution back in effect, selected one of the 3 claimants to the throne, the one we liked the best, set him up, and then leave. That's what I think we should have done.
Okay. Next question is an interesting one from Nick. I was wondering if you could comment on the effect that psychedelic drugs have had and continue to have on our culture. I think people tend to think their influence died out in the 60s or 70s and do not realize that they are very much rising in popularity in the secular world among seemingly intellectual and sophisticated people.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was blitzed out. No. Well, firstly, this is kind of a cruel comment coming only a few days after the 51st anniversary of the Human Be-In in Golden Gate Park. You see, psychedelic drugs, and specifically LSD, were legal in the state until 1967, early 67.
Wow.
And to celebrate, in a sense, or mark their departure, a whole bunch of people got together in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco and dropped acid. And this was called the Human Be-In, and was the prequel to the Summer of Love of that summer.
Wow.
There were several people involved with the psychedelic movement. The most famous was Timothy Leary, whom I had the privilege of meeting on one occasion at a party here in Hollywood. And you know my rule, if I'm going to meet a celebrity, I've got to come up with something they've never heard before.
Right.
So, Tequila and Mockingbird introduced us. She knows these people. So, we go up there, and she introduces me to him. And I said, yeah, Doc, my father put you down a lot during the 60s. And he looked at me sort of smirking, as if to say, everybody's father put me down in the 60s. But I said, oh, no, it wasn't because of the drugs. Dad didn't care about that. It was because you were Irish. he didn't believe in you people getting ahead of yourselves and grabbing the spotlight, Thought you needed a lower profile. Which wasn't true, by the way,
yeah.
But it struck him dumb. He looked at me, it was like... And he couldn't say anything. It was great. But... well, he was the one who told us to turn on, tune in, and drop out.
Oh, okay.
You've heard that phrase?
Vaguely, yeah.
Vaguely, of course, vaguely. A whole generation has missed out. How do I feel about hallucinogens? Well, I don't think they're a good idea. I do think that, I can't think of a reason to promote their use.
I think he's asking, do you think they're still having a big impact?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. A lot of kids take them and see what it was all about, And see, the problem with psychedelic drugs is whatever is in your head already is what will come out.
Okay, that doesn't sound so bad.
Depends on who you are. There are a lot of people with a lot of nasty stuff screwed up in their heads. Unscrew it, let it out. You don't know what you'll see. My friend of mine who just died actually last Friday, when we were at school together, he drove back from our alma mater here to LA, over almost 1,000 miles, hallucinating the whole way.
He dropped acid when he was with you?
No, I wasn't there.
Oh.
But he was on his way back here.
Okay. He hallucinated while he was driving? Wow.
That's what I said. But he got back in one piece. Don't try that at home, kids.
Yeah.
It's the thing about hallucinogens is that they make your imagination concrete. And that is the great allure. Sometimes it's not too alluring, though, depending on what is in your very own noggin.
Wow.
I really wouldn't bother with them if I were you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. Our last question today is from Angus Rhodes.
Hello, Angus.
Hi, Charles. What are your thoughts on Anarcho-Monarchism? Could this be a way to introduce more left-leaning people to the idea of monarchy? For everybody, please explain what Anarcho-Monarchism is. It sounds like an oxymoron to me.
Well, if I understand it, and my understanding may be flawed, ladies and gentlemen, Anarcho-Monarchism is the notion of a monarchy that is completely separate from government You've got the king, his courtiers, and you've got the people. There's no government in between them. In other words, not too dissimilar from the early Middle Ages, or Game of Thrones, if you prefer.
I mean, isn't the monarch part of the government? I don't understand.
Well, all right. You've got to bear in mind the government as we know it arose from the king's immediate entourage. In other words, remember, it's after the fall of the Roman Empire, okay? Everything is in ruins. So then these people arise who are able to guarantee protection, and they are called kings.
Isn't that a form of government? Isn't that a government service?
And not really, because it's a personal contract between you and an actual human being, a father figure, not between you and a faceless state.
Okay.
See, we are used to thinking of government as a machinery, you see, that has a mind of its own.
So Anarcho-Monarchism is basically the king functions as some sort of protection agency, and that's it?
Pretty much, but that's a lot.
Okay.
And the relationship is direct between the people and him, no, not filtered through a cabinet or a state or a parliament or a judiciary. If there are judgments to be made in law, the king makes them.
I don't see how that can happen in nature. I don't understand.
Well, and I may not be representing it properly either. There's that possibility. And again, I don't know how that would play out in a modern technological society. So, I mean, there's a lot of what ifs. But the question then is, can anarcho-monarchy make people think about it wouldn't otherwise? Well, I suppose. I mean, if you've been looking at anarchist theory, which basically has everybody living as separate units in a non-governmentalized area, that's even crazier. Because real life being what it is, you're going to be paying protection to somebody.
Yeah.
And if said person wears a crown and is taught that from childhood to believe he'll go to hell if he rules you badly, that's probably better than having the capo del tutti capi being paid protection.
Okay.
And by the way, either of those scenarios are a lot likelier under anarchy than simple freeholds. You know, just a whole bunch of free farmers living in peace and harmony.
I think you once said so. The king's number one job, or only job, is to keep the peace.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Well, it's his biggest single function. I mean, he does have others. Remember that traditionally the king, all right, you have three male roles. Here we have gender roles again. Sorry. Priest, king, and father. Now, each of these three partakes to a degree of the nature of the other two. Can you see that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, the king's single biggest reason for being is to maintain the peace, but that means more than simply an absence of conflict.
Okay, what does it also mean?
It means maintains a certain harmony between the different elements of the state. There's a difference between harmony and an absence of conflict.
Okay, so that's what I was trying to get at. So that seems to transcend anarcho-monarchism, because he's doing more than just keeping the peace.
Yeah, but he's not in and of himself a government machinery, which is what they're trying to get away from.
Okay.
So, by the way, if anyone out there espouses anarcho-monarchism and finds my analysis flawed, feel free to let us know, because I'm not entirely sure I know what I'm talking about, and I'm not being funny.
You're not an expert in every single thing.
No, and that's the other thing, ladies and gentlemen. I've been getting requests for personal advice. I don't mind that. That's okay. But please bear in mind that any personal advice I give you is going to be based on what will seem to you like vague principles. Because I don't know you. Yeah. I don't know your circumstances. I don't know what you have to put up with, what you're living with. So You know, if you send me a note saying, do you think I should stay where I live or emigrate? I don't know. What I do recommend is that you get to know where you live very well before you decide to leave it. You know, check out all its nooks and crannies, all its historic spots, its ethnic groups, its churches. Find out everything you can so you can make an informed decision. Other than that, I really wouldn't know what to tell you because I don't know you, I don't know your skills, and so forth. And there's been kind of an uptick in this whole agony aunt side of things. You know, I'm not Dear Abby.
No? We need a Dear Abby, though. Dear Abby doesn't exist anymore, does it? We need a new one.
Yeah, we do. We really do. And I would do it if I were paid, but I'm not, so I won't. But honestly, ladies and gentlemen, just bear that in mind, you know, when it comes to concrete life situations. Very often you're going to try to figure out what your conscience requires of you and do that. But it's very difficult when you're a stranger.
Okay. Well, that's it for this episode. Any last words, Charles?
No. I'm just looking forward to the Candlemas. I will miss Christmas a lot. I always do every year. But I enjoy Mardi Gras.
Oh yeah, don't we all?
No. So, you know, I'll leave you with this comforting thought since we're coming up to Mardi Gras. Edward VIII was the King of Great Britain, and you remember in 1936 he abdicated to marry the woman he loved, the Duchess of Windsor when he became the Duke. So in 1950 they were in New Orleans for Mardi Gras, and the big question is, since they were invited to a ball, the Rex Ball, will they bow and curtsy to the King and Queen of Rex? They're real royalty. At least he was. Well, that was the big question on everyone's mind. And that night at the Roosevelt Hotel in New Orleans, people could barely stand the suspense. Then the King bowed, the Duke bowed, and his Duchess curtsied to the King and Queen of Rex.
Okay.
And that issue was solved.
There you go. A happy ending.
I think so. And so let us wish you a happy Candlemas, a happy Australian Day, a happy Barons Day,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, keep the spirit of Christmas alive all year round, even though it's very shortly going to be exiled from our midst.
See you next time.
Ciao, ciao. Be good.